It's hard when you're not winning at all and you jump it into Meta and Meta's not working to then invest more into Google, right? Like you're getting in this spot where you're like, we don't have the money to spend. And so sometimes when you can nab up some of that lower, I hate using the word low hanging fruit, but I think everyone understands it.
Yeah. It's not low hanging in the sense that it's easy.
Right. It's just
there's demand.
Yeah, exactly.
So capture the demand that's already there. Where social ads is great at creating demand, but sometimes your problem solution type product.
So yeah, there's so much demand already there. You don't need to create it. So just jump in, nab it up, and then start creating more. Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Unstoppable Marketer Podcast. What was that?
We shall.
With me, as always, is Mark Goldhart, my lovely co-host, who's growing his hair back out. It looks like unintentionally.
It's unintentional, but it's happening, I guess.
We missed last week. It's Black Friday week prep, and we just were
and Thanksgiving
were crazy
and traveling.
and so
it was a no-go.
Lo siento. Very sorry. How are you? We made it. It is. You're listening to this post Black Friday. We did it.
It's over finally.
Yeah. That is I think that is my 8th Black Friday in the industry. And it was by far the most interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how many it's been for me.
It's probably been
7,
similar.
6.
Maybe you're like 1 or 2 behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So grand total of, call it,
15
together. So
no, not that much.
Yeah, it was crazy. How was Black Friday? Like what's your take on Black Friday?
Interesting take. I guess my hot take is that Meta actually worked pretty well. Despite rising CPMs, despite, the narrative online that everything's getting worse.
Right.
We saw across the board Meta perform pretty similar year over year, if not slightly better from a conversion rate standpoint.
Okay, that's what I was saying. Define what you mean. So you're saying...
Well, just like efficiency. Yeah, like just overall efficiency of Meta traffic, Meta ads was pretty solid, but we did see some interesting trends, and we've been spotting these trends for a couple of weeks, months, but and those trends are concerning going into Q1.
Yeah.
So that's why it was an interesting week. Like I think we probably hoped for better for some, and it didn't pan out. Like others did way better than it expected or projected.
Sure. But
overall, it wasn't this huge negative month. Like, oh, this didn't work.
Yeah.
And you got the vibe that a lot of people, it felt like some people were kind of fudding, Doomsday, as they say.
Yeah.
Doomsday, like Meta's broken, it's not working. But there is something broken in Meta, but I don't think it's the ads.
Yeah. But my big takeaway was your dollars did not go as far from a traffic perspective, but the behavior was exactly what you hoped it to be once you got it.
Well, and the behavior was often better.
Yeah, exactly. It was better.
So like the conversion rate, we saw conversion rates.
Yeah, buying was
up. Traffic slightly. I mean, when I say down, I'm saying like the cost per
to get
click was higher.
Yes, which meant that $1,000 normally would get you X amount, only got you.
But 20%, conversion rates 40% were higher.
Less, yeah.
Across the board, conversion rates were higher.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I thought the same thing.
So for the accounts that were slightly down or maybe like missed projections, like we looked into it, and maybe this is you, I don't know, out there to our listeners, to our loyal listeners. Maybe you were down, maybe you weren't as good as expected. What we saw in accounts was direct traffic. It is very influenced by ads, but direct traffic was down, referral traffic was down.
Yeah.
And that's what is interesting about what's broken in Meta is it's I think a lot of people lean on saying it's the ads because that's the shiny object, right? Like that's the thing that grows you the fastest. It's the one thing you can control on a daily basis.
Did I get traffic? Yeah.
But across the board, we know that most clients are experiencing a huge decrease this year in organic reach.
Yeah. Yeah. And
they're just not reaching their followers the way they could in past Black Fridays. And so you're having to make some of that up through ads.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'm sure a lot of people realize this, but just in case you don't, when you're driving organic traffic, that is a pool that you can tap into from a paid ads perspective. And that pool is becoming less and less and less. So you're having to manufacture that pool through paid ads. Whereas in the previous years, that pool was just naturally higher. And so the question is...
Yeah, and ads could retarget engaged audiences.
Exactly.
Right. So the more reach and engagement you got, obviously your ads are going to look, quote, better.
Yep.
And perform better.
And the brands that have a good organic presence that we worked with, those were the brands that were up. Those were the brands that won. Yeah. Yeah. Like at a much higher ratio this year.
Yeah. Like we have a few clients that were up a couple hundred percentages, Yeah. So, yeah. And those kinds of clients have some virality to their organic game.
Yeah.
Right now that others don't.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just like we're not going to give you guys a good solution to that. We talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
Because it is concerning to see why your people's reach is just so down. I mean, across the board.
Do you think it's the platform's fault, or do you think it's how people create content? I mean, obviously there's both. I think the safe answer is both, but.
Well, my hot take is it's not the platform's fault. It's not. Yeah, it's not the platform's fault, and it's not the business's fault. It's the consumer's fault.
Elaborate.
Consumers. So there's a little hint in your ads account. So if you have access to your ads account, go look up over the last little while, especially over like Black Friday and like maybe October, November time period, if you want to go back further. And you can even go back even further than that. But go look at your CPMs by placement and go look at how much CPMs just in Instagram feed have gone up. Now, what people may not realize about a CPM metric is that is just a supply demand metric, right? That is the demand of advertising dollars going into it and the supply of eyeballs.
Yep.
Well, Reels and stories across the board, especially Reels, have had a much, much, much cheaper CPM. Yes, behavior has been, in the past, buying behavior was a little less or a lot less in Reels, but I'm seeing that starting to shift towards Reels.
Yeah.
And so a hypothesis that we're going to be testing out is, I think that consumers are just spending way more time on Reels. I don't think people are scrolling the feed anymore, even though that's where all the money's going.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing a change in dynamic of, and that's also why you don't get reach, right? Like you're not getting reach because there's not as many people spending time on feed.
Right.
Scrolling through who they're following.
Yeah, for sure.
They're jumping into Reels, or maybe they're going through stories.
Yeah.
So interesting. The consumer, like I don't think this is necessarily like Meta conspiring against advertisers. I just think you would think that their platform would catch up with that.
Yeah.
And realize that, hey, maybe we should distribute, especially if you're using like automatic placements. Because for a long time, automatic placements, at least in the last year, they've been great, but we played around depending on the account. And if we saw these trends in an account, we used some manual placements and those worked great.
Yeah.
After we realized that oh, in some accounts, Reels was far outperforming feed, and CPMs were so high in feed that not only were you getting a better cost per result in a Reels placement, you were also getting more clicks.
Yeah.
So if you're getting more clicks, better cost pers, then that helps you down funnel too.
Right.
So whether this is just a glitch because of Black Friday in October and the election, or whether this is a trend, will probably pan out in the next 2 months.
I mean, to me, everything signs wise say that it's not a glitch, because we've been seeing it with accounts
for a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we have some brands whose best CPA months were spring, and they were the worst CPA months they've had. And the biggest thing that we can pull back and look at is that was like roughly right around when their organic reach just took the biggest nosedive.
Yep.
So,
which is a bummer.
Yeah, I mean the point I think that,
but we have to evolve.
Yeah, and I think I know you said you didn't want to do this, and we won't dive deep into it. But the point, like Mark and I talk about this quite a bit. Like we obviously run paid ads, like we are paid ad experts. That's what our agency does. So paid ads isn't going anywhere. It's still critically the best way to grow and scale. But I just think today was the like final straw, or this weekend was the final straw to me that for most people, paid ads alone just won't cut it. There's definitely some brands out there that it can and will. So don't come after me, because there's some brands out there who's like, that's all we do. And we're right. If you are a problem solution product, I guess that kind of stuff.
I guess my only pushback on that is it's not that paid ads won't cut it. I think media buying is becoming a little bit harder. So I think the first 6 months of this year, it was like the easiest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause that's when broad started to become.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you had 12 months, like maybe end of last year going into this year, where it became easier, like broad worked.
Yeah.
But something happened over the last 6 months, and I think it has more to do with user behavior than it has to do with like Meta changing something.
Algorithms or whatever, yeah.
And so yes, but because again, like we have brands that it's basically paid ads does everything for them.
Yeah.
And they're killing it. But it's going to take a lot more nuance in how you are running ads. Like you can't, like if you're just using broad, if you're just doing these things and just expecting it all to work all the time without testing new funnel inflows, then you're probably going to be in trouble. Yeah. And another example of that is like, hey, ads are going to work for you, but sometimes social ads aren't the best thing for you.
Yeah. Yeah. We've moved a lot of people not completely out of Meta, but we've pulled a lot of people's Meta budget and dumped it over into the Google side of things.
Yeah, depending on what industry you're in.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of really good success that way.
Or your product positioning. Yeah. So like
for sure.
These are kind of newer clients that we've had where sometimes you go, it's not that social ads can't work for you, but it's like people are searching for this. Like this is This is a problem solution product that's kind of more of a niche community. Like, like social ads may or may not work in the long run, but they've always struggled. Like they've gone through 5 agencies struggling. So it's like, well, Google ads is going to be
right.
And you look at their Google account and you can
and you're like,
dissect it and say, oh, actually, why aren't you just running Google?
Yeah.
You can actually grow on Google. There's still tons of lift, but you're just bidding on brand terms right now. Yeah. That's why there's no incrementality.
Yeah, and you can maximize what's happening over in Google. And as soon as you start to get that engine flowing, you can start to reinvest to create more demand on the Meta side of things, right? Whereas it's hard when you're not winning at all and you jump it into Meta and Meta's not working to then invest more into Google, right? Like you're getting in this spot where you're like, we don't have the money to spend. And so sometimes you can nab up some of that lower, I hate using the word low hanging fruit, but I think everyone understands it. Like the search terms there, people are like, if I'm searching for.
Yeah. It's not low hanging in the sense that it's easy.
Right. It's just
there's demand.
Yeah, exactly.
So capture the demand that's already there.
Yeah.
Where social ads is great at creating demand, but sometimes your problem solution type product.
So yeah, there's so much demand already there. You don't need to create it. So just jump in, nab it up, and then start creating more.
Yeah, because you're trying to compete, and a lot of times these have low AOVs too. Right, that's the problem. It's like you got low AOV, you got a lot of one-time purchasers, or whatever the situation might be. It's like, maybe Meta ads isn't going to cut it for you.
Yeah.
Unless you have the creative potential or the virality of organic and multipliers, force multipliers is what we call them.
Yeah. Yeah, but nonetheless, like you said, with on the Meta side of things, I think investing in an organic strategy is just critical. Like I said, we talk about it all the time. It's not just going to be helpful because it's going to help you retarget, but it's also a great way to test creative, right? Like where does the majority of your wasted budget go in Meta? Oftentimes for brands, it's testing that creative. Which is a good thing, right? You want to test the right stuff to then double down on it. But when you find winners in the organic side, those generally become winners on the paid side. So you can kind of cut through some of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it wasted spend because that spend oftentimes is very important. You got to figure out which ones win. So
yeah, it's tough sledding out there, man. I mean, on the organic side, especially, which then parlays over into, like my ads aren't doing as good. It's like, well, once you hit a certain point, like your ads are just not going to perform the same because you don't have a pool of this organic people that have engaged with you once or twice.
Right.
That you're essentially retargeting.
Yeah. And organic isn't just like you creating yourself organic content. Organic is also other people talking about you too. You can look at it that way. More borrowed, I guess. Sometimes we call that borrowed distribution. Yeah. So collaborations. Which you can user generated content.
Yeah, and you've turn that engine on from selling more products too. Yeah. Right? I mean, a lot of people have a ton of tagged content that they never even look at.
Yeah.
Or touch or notice. Like they don't even know that they have like 5 bigger people that have posted about them sometimes, like
totally. Yeah.
So go look at who's tagging you.
Yeah.
Make sure somebody's monitoring that.
But there's a good app that monitors that for you. So like obviously it's really easy on Instagram to see who tags you in a feed,
selecting that tag.
By just going over to the tag section. But there's been a big decrease in people tagging in posts and people tagging stories. And so there's a Shopify app called Archive, and there's a freemium version of it. And the paid version I think is super cheap. It's probably totally less than $60 a month. But that's a great way. You can get access to stories even after they've ended. Stories are only 24 hours, but Archive will hold those things and archive them for forever. And then you can just reach out to those people and work with them, use that content in ads. But go try that app out. It's a good one.
Bada bing, bada boom, like that.
Archive, you should sponsor the podcast.
At Archive.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. No, I was trying to though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just go to the Shopify app store and type in Archive and you'll find it.
Make sure you're looking at those because those posts, and if you're tagged, you can always reach out to them. That's ad content. If they're getting better engagement, you might be able to analyze, hey, what are they doing?
Send them more.
Yeah.
Yeah, send them more product. Send more people product too, guys. What a great, when we run surveys for people, generally, if you have a good product, one of the top 3 marketing channels, when we ask the question, how did you hear about us? How did you first hear about us? Your product's really good if the, top 2 to 3 responses is someone referred me, friend or family member. So what Mark was saying is hey, the way you can sell more is when you sell more. It's the same thing as when you give out content, that is advertising dollars. That's a great way to spend money, So if you're hey, I only have $25,000 or $50,000 a month, take 5 or 10,000 of that and give it away. Cause you need that good content.
Give it away now.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
So yeah, I like that.
They are red hot.
Yeah. What else? Anything else? Learnings from Black Friday? Anything you want to just vent about in the e-commerce space right now? Get off your chest?
No. Not really.
Yeah.
I'm not much of a venter, you know?
Yeah.
Doesn't change the situation.
Yeah.
But I think knowing that, what can you do? Okay, so maybe your organic isn't going to pick up in the next 1 or 2 months. Probably won't.
Right.
And I think that's the problem, right? Like organic is a vitamin pill. It's going to take a while to see benefits. Like it's a nutritional regimen. It's long term. You'll feel the benefits after you keep a schedule, right? Like for a while.
Yeah.
Very unlikely you're going to just like start turning up your organic engine and seeing the engagement and the reach that you want.
Yeah.
Even if you hired somebody tomorrow. So what can you do? Well, it's really time to start thinking about just clicks and engagement and top funnel metrics that a lot of people forget in the e-com world. Like everyone's looking for direct attribution. I want a click and a purchase within 7 days or whatever. But now it's time to say, okay, let's take a step back. And this is my prediction for Q1 in 2025. The good ones are going to take a step back and say, hey, costs have risen in Meta, and Meta's still performing, but we also have a bigger approach here. We just need more touch points with people and introductions.
Yeah.
How do we get those introductions? Is it going to be through a platform like X? Is TikTok going to start being better for that kind of content where, hey, we're going to get better cost pers? Like TikTok's been kind of fluky. Yeah. Has not been consistent in the way Meta has, which is why.
And we've especially seen a little dip recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so where are you going to get those views, those clicks, that engagement to bolster up your mid funnel to bottom funnel?
Right.
Right. Because I think a lot of people get stuck on just like mid funnel, bottom funnel, and Meta's kind of leaning towards that right now. And so, and then again, that might be top funnel campaigns in Meta.
Sure.
But just carefully monitoring, because I mean, a lot of agencies will be like, you just need clicks, then you get 1 million clicks and no one ever buys.
Right. And it's just
because they're not monitoring.
Men who are doing it. Yeah.
Because they're optimizing off of link clicks.
Right.
But sometimes it's video engagement campaigns. Sometimes it's link click campaigns. Sometimes it's awareness campaigns. There's a few options for top funnel campaigns, and a lot of people fail at them. And the reason being is sometimes it doesn't work. Like sometimes your buyer consideration is just not that long.
Right. So it doesn't make sense to do that.
So it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of money there. But most of the time, if you fail at that, it's generally like you're not monitoring it and measuring success in the right ways. Like, are these people engaged when they come in contact with your brand?
Yeah.
Right. Are they moving down funnel, so to speak? I know some people like to say that the funnel doesn't exist anymore, and that's fine. I think that's just semantic.
Whether it's a funnel or a journey.
Yeah. Or a cycle or whatever they call it.
Every brand has a journey of some sort.
So, yeah. We could beef about that.
Yeah.
That's something that annoys me. People reinventing semantic meanings and trying to like spin it into like a new one.
Yeah.
That always always irks me.
What are your thoughts about in D2C Twitter right now, AppLovin? You're seeing people talk about new programmatic advertising opportunities.
I'm not saying anybody's out there lying.
Sure. But it'd be interesting to understand what their incentive to talk about it would be.
Yeah, less about that. It's more look, this is the same kind of advice I give to new parents. Like when somebody has a kid, I say, I'm not going to give you any advice because the best advice I can give you is like, you're just going to have to figure it all out as you go. But my one piece of advice is like for dads, for example, like I'll tell dads, my one piece of advice for you is to really try to cherish the time that the baby will sleep in your arms. Cause like they'll stop doing that for you before they do it.
For mom. Yeah.
Generally.
Sure.
I know it's, case by case.
Yeah.
But like generally they start wanting to play with dad.
Snuggle with mom.
And they get more comfort from mom generally. Yeah. And so like my only advice is like, hey, take advantage of when they'll actually just fall asleep on you. Cause like once it's over, it's over.
Right.
So it's more of just like, just enjoy the moment,
Yeah.
But like, I don't have like techniques.
Right.
I'm not going to tell them all these little things.
Yeah. So tying that back into
brands, you're going to jump onto Twitter and it's like getting advice from a parent with kids that are completely different than you.
Yeah.
Like it might work, might not, but AppLovin, it's programmatic ad placements in apps. Is it working really well for some brands? I'm sure it is. What kind of brands are they? Are they 7-figure brands? Are they 8-figure brands? Are they 9-figure brands?
Right.
Right. What's their total attainable market? There's just different.
Yeah.
There's just different measurements for each industry and for each brand. And look, maybe AppLovin is the next best thing. Programmatic ad placements have been around for 10 years.
Oh, much longer even,
So like in apps.
Sure.
And I mean, is it really the next best thing? Everyone was talking about TikTok shops being the next best thing. Those people are now saying.
And for some brands it is.
And right? For some, like again, for some brands it
TikTok
is.
TikTok shops is everything.
I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious.
Yeah.
Of claims that like there's the new thing on the block. But again, like I just said, that can sound hypocritical because I just said, hey, we're going to have to figure out what the top funnel is, whether it's in Meta or whether it's AppLovin or whether it's Twitter or whether it's YouTube, like where's the user behavior going basically? Like where is your audience? How can you meet your audience where they are?
Yeah.
I'm agnostic. I'm not like a Meta maximalist. Like I don't think you have to be in Meta 100% of the time, but it has been the most consistent over time. It's not as bad as some people say. And then the other thing with the AppLovin is sometimes I wonder if people are misusing Meta in a way. Mm-hmm. Or expecting Meta to be things that it's not. Sure. And so maybe it's underperforming.
Yeah.
But
because they're not doing it right.
Yeah. But nonetheless, like I'm sure the people who say they're seeing success on AppLovin are.
Yeah.
I'm not claiming anybody's a liar. But the people who I have seen praise AppLovin generally tend to be a kind of company that most our audience probably isn't in.
Sure. Yeah.
Just from a revenue perspective, just from a size perspective, just from like, most companies should probably just focus on 2 advertising channels until they hit 20 million a year, Like you don't have to diversify now. And again, maybe we do because we have to figure out if you're not getting organic reach the way you used to, and if Meta continues to evolve, if CPMs rise, like if, these are a lot of ifs, that's why you have to test, but, you're going to have to make up those clicks and those engagement and those eyeballs in another avenue.
Yeah.
That's not organic.
Right.
So what is that other avenue? Like that's the big question going into 2025.
Yeah. Where everybody lost this year was less traffic.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there were some times with economy stuff and the election that I think just goofed with a lot of things. But for the most part, when we can go back, right, the big four, hey, why is my store up or why is my store down? It's traffic, it's conversion rate, it's AOV, and it's returning customers. 90% of the time it was traffic for most people. Mm-hmm. So that's what Mark means when he's like, you have to find a way to make it up.
And if it is what it is for your brand, like, hey, the only way to grow is through paid, then your job over the next 3 months is to really look at your economies of scale in your business and your operational costs, and to try to figure out, hey, if we're not going to get the same reach on organic, like this isn't 2016, you're not posting and your followers see it anymore.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have to get that engagement back through paid means,
yeah,
then where are you going to make up the margin?
There's definitely a way to do it for sure. Right? Like if you understand your economics, what, for example, your variable costs and OPEX are down to like the penny, then sometimes all you need to do, right? If you saw your AMER or MER, whatever metric ROI, ROAS, whatever you want to call it, whatever metric you're looking at to understand how efficient things have been for you. Let's say you were sitting at a 3 and now you were at a 2. Your profitability just shrunk by, what is that, 30%? Right? So a big, significant dip. That doesn't necessarily mean that paid still can't work. You just might have to double your spend to get the same profits that you may have, right? So as long as you know those numbers, right, you understand what your contribution margin is, you understand what your overall costs of the business are. Like we have some brands that we talk to right now. It's like, hey, I know performance sucks. Spend more. If you're not willing to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's usually, hey, performance feels like it sucks.
Right.
Here's the big picture of why you feel this way.
Right.
So you have two options. Either you play the efficiency game or you play the volume game.
Yeah.
And it's not, and this is always this is the problem that a lot of brands face. It's a mentality problem, not necessarily a math problem.
Sure. Yeah, the math works.
It's, well, I'm used to seeing, especially brands that had the 5, 6, 7x numbers in 2016, 17, 18, 19, right?
Yeah.
But you're not going to see those kinds of, quote, returns. And by the way, those returns were all inflated because of what we're talking about. You used to get organic reach.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the returns you were getting on ads were never
that high.
That high.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people would spend a lot more money and never see growth.
Yeah, exactly.
Back then.
Yeah.
It's because, never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I digress.
Yeah.
The point being,
your performance might be fine. It's just different.
What do you care about? Profit volume or profit efficiency?
Yeah. Do you care about profit margin or do you care about profit margin dollar?
Yeah. Because guess what? Walmart cares about volume.
Yeah. The profit margin
That's
dollar.
how, and guess what? That's how companies get big too. I think a lot of these brands in e-commerce fall into this mindset trap of, we can't grow because we're not hitting certain efficiencies. And it's, okay, well, either you got to figure out a way to cut costs in your business so that you can make up that margin.
Organic.
Or if you're still profitable, then you just need more volume.
Yeah.
And yes, there's an efficiency metric that comes into play with more volume too.
Yeah.
However, that's the biggest mindset jump I think that a lot of brands might have to make is like, yeah, guys, like most industries don't have a lot of margin actually. You know, they just do, like, big companies don't have big margins. They generally have huge volumes.
Yeah. You have to ask yourself the question, let's say you want to make $50,000 in overall profit, right? After I've paid everything, ads, agencies, employees, I want to make $50,000 in profit. Mm-hmm. Does it matter if you spent $50,000 to make $50,000 in profit or $200,000 to make $50,000 in profit? Because at the end of the day, you're getting that money all back.
Exactly. And if you went to any investor, like this is the mindset, right? If you went to any investor on Wall Street and said, hey, I have this machine that if you put $200,000 into, you'll get $250,000 back.
Yeah. They would say yes all the time.
Of course they'd say yes all the time.
Even if you said $205,000 and it was a guarantee, they would say yes.
Within 7 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like within 7 days, you're going to get $205,000 back.
I mean, that seems like crazy, but sure, let's do it. Yeah.
So yeah, my point being and your point being is, yes, you're spending more money, but at some point, if you're playing the volume game, like the volume works.
Yeah. The big question is, do you have the credit? You know, do you have how high are your credit card limits or how high is your line of credit from the bank? Or How much cash flow do you,
Sure, you have to build up to that.
There's
for sure,
those things,
but
obviously, but just, let's say you've got it. That's a really, not an easy way to scale, but a very logical, mathematic way to scale. You just have to get out of the mind F that is, which is, I used to get this.
You're too focused on efficiency.
Yep. I used to get this. Who cares if it's not a 4 anymore and it's a 1.8? I'm just going to quadruple my spend and get the same or more profitability.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying forego all profitability metrics, but, and neither you, but this idea of this efficiency, I think a lot of smaller brands would be very surprised to peek into big companies' ad accounts and see what kind of, quote, ROAS they get.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
Which is not great.
Yeah.
According to what you think it should be.
Sure.
Like the ROAS doesn't get better.
No. Especially as you spend more.
It plateaus though.
Yeah.
Right? Like the efficiency will decrease over time because again, we're talking about, and this is the mindset that I hope a lot of people are understanding, and this is a lot of the reason why people have a hard time with this jump is the blind spot in e-commerce has always been the last couple of years, especially this year. Oh, my ads aren't performing as well as they used to. And it's actually my hot take. If that's not true, it's just, you don't have the easy organic you used to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not blaming anybody for that.
Yeah.
It's just, that's what's changed. Like you don't have the reach. Like, and if you do have the reach, reach out to us. And if your ads are still performing worse, then that's interesting.
Yeah.
But in most of the accounts, if not all that we deal with, ads are actually performing great. It's just, hey, if you don't have the organic reach, like with this one brand we deal with, they have a great product. They're in a semi-niche. Well, they're not in a niche industry, but they have a niche message to that market. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty big obtainable market though.
Sure.
Their organic reach has gone down 90% over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So naturally ad costs appear to be a lot more.
Yeah.
But when you look at all these metrics, like, hey, look at your engagement rates and your conversion rates on in analytics,
everything
Google Analytics,
great,
in Shopify, like everything's still working. It's just your traffic is all paid now.
Yeah.
And they're still profitable. And once we got to that point of them saying, okay, we just got to do more volume, everything's been working out for them.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But that's not to say your first point is invalid, because the best way to increase your efficiency is to have better organic reach on social media platforms.
Yeah. I agree. So organic, important, more so traffic is just important. You just need more traffic. So whether that's organic or whether that's other paid channels that can help hopefully get you
and the right kind of traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just
somewhat cheaper,
traffic.
Better traffic.
That's because, and I just want to reiterate, that's a trap that you might fall into
totally
as a brand owner, or if you're using an agency, or if you're a media buyer.
Yeah.
They'll get you a lot of traffic and you'll be pumping traffic if you're a media buyer. But if you don't realize, oh, these are all grandmas
and it's not converting, then
and we sell skateboards. Like, like that's.
The other thing that I just want to add that we haven't talked about is like, I think 2025 is just a place for that every brand can go clean up their OpEx. I think that that's sometimes a big killer in what you can spend and how you can.
Well, you got possible Trump tariffs too.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're going to want to spend a lot of good operational time thinking about possible.
And that's probably a whole new podcast. Like we should probably go through that could be a very interesting pod. But yeah, just jump into your OpEx. Try not to make it so your OpEx is much more than like.
We should bring in an operation guy.
Yeah.
Or girl, or gal, or woman.
Human.
Boy.
Just an operation individual. Yeah. Yeah, dig into OpEx. What are you spending on rent? How many employees do you have? Could one person do the job of two? You know, there's a lot. You'd be shocked with how much most people are spending on things that they don't necessarily need to spend on.
Yeah, the Pareto principle is undefeated and it is alive and well in your organization right now. I
heard somebody on Twitter actually say something that I really liked, is that your OpEx should not be any higher than your returning customer contribution margin. As a good rule of thumb.
That is a good rule of thumb.
Because then everything else you're bringing in from a new customer acquisition is profitability.
Yes.
I like that, actually.
That is a really good rule of thumb.
Yeah. So,
right.
Or something like that.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I think that's good enough, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I like the idea of doing like a deep dive operationally. We can talk tariffs. We can talk how to look into ops, how to break down contribution margin, because I'm sure we're using that word and there are people who have maybe heard the word but aren't exactly sure how to dive deeper into that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. We even talked about, we have a really cool contribution margin doc we talked about that maybe that could be like a good little lead magnet we can give to people so we can start communicating.
Yeah, a little magnetism.
Yeah. Make you guys give us your email addresses for our
putting it out in the universe.
Secrets.
Drawing those with similar energies.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Thank
Mercury
you so much.
is in retrograde, they say.
Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a good Black Friday, and we will see you guys next week.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for listening to the Unstoppable Marketer podcast. Please go rate and subscribe the podcast, whether it's good or bad. We want to hear from you because we always want to make this podcast better. If you want to get in touch with me or give me any direct feedback, please go follow me and get in touch with me. I am at the Trevor Crump on both Instagram and TikTok. Thank you, and we will see you next week.